make these programs possible.
I'm Gautam Mukunda. Tonight on Greater Boston, part of the 14th Amendment was explicitly written to keep insurrectionists off the ballot. Will the Supreme Court let Donald Trump run anyway? And what does that mean for voters in Massachusetts? Plus, what lawmakers at the State House are planning to do about the possible collapse of Steward Healthcare. Then, GBH meteorologist Dave Epstein joins me with what to expect from tonight's snowstorm. In no uncertain terms, the U.S. Constitution bars someone who has engaged in an insurrection against the United States from holding public office. So, why does the Supreme Court seem poised to let former President Donald Trump remain on the ballot, despite his involvement in the January 6th attack on the Capitol? And what happens if and when they do? To discuss, I'm joined by Josh Gerstein, Politico Senior Legal Affairs Reporter and Spring Resident Fellow with Harvard's Institute of Politics, and Jeremy Pohl, former Dean of Northeastern School of Law, where he's currently a professor of constitutional law. Jeremy, help me out. What does the 14th Amendment actually say?
The 14th Amendment explicitly says that no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president or vice president, or hold any office, and that's the key phrase there, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States, and I'll skip on, who shall have engaged in insurrection can hold any office. And you raised the question perfectly in your opening, what is it about that language that's unclear? And unfortunately, there's a lot that's unclear. The single biggest thing is who gets to decide whether someone has or has not engaged in an insurrection.
So who does get to decide that, Josh?
Well, I mean, as Jeremy suggested, the first thing I think any of us trying to interpret this would look at would be, well, was there an insurrection? As a reporter, this would be my instinct, and if so, who was involved in it? And the weird thing about this is that seems like the question the Supreme Court is least interested in grappling with. They are more interested in all the packaged questions around it about who this applies to, whether the way this came up with the Supreme Court, where it came out of Colorado, and the decisions of a Colorado courts on this issue are things that the Supreme Court needs to recognize or that other states need to recognize. All those ancillary issues are ones that the justices seem much more interested in debating and discussing than whether there was an insurrection on January 6, 2021, and whether the then President Donald Trump was responsible for it.
So on the question of if there was an insurrection, I mean, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican, he had a speech on this topic where he said,
"It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next."
Okay, so Mitch McConnell says it's an insurrection, and we don't take Mitch McConnell maybe as the final word on these things. But interestingly enough, Donald Trump had an opinion as to whether January 6th was an insurrection as well, too. And so we could hear what he had to say about it.
They kept saying about what I said right after the insurrection, which I think it was an insurrection caused by Nancy Pelosi.
So apparently the one thing none of us are going to argue about is whether it was an insurrection, because Donald Trump says it was, and I guess he'd be the person most motivated to say that it wasn't. So what is the source of confusion in the 14th Amendment that makes it less than clear?
The trial court also found that it was an insurrection, and they relied heavily on the committee hearings from the January 6th committee. But there's been no formal process, so Mitch McConnell can say one thing, former President Trump can say one thing, but the question is, what sort of formal process must be undertaken in order to determine whether it was an insurrection or not? I have my own view. I think, of course, it was an insurrection, but what the Supreme Court is looking at is how many different people should be able to express an opinion on that. If one state says one thing, another state says another thing, the justices seemed, at the oral argument, very concerned about the possibility of different states reaching different conclusions.
So, I mean, is there the possibility of a formal process to determine this, or is the Supreme Court just trying to get out of answering an awkward question?
Well, there was a bit of a process already. There was a trial in Colorado. It wasn't a jury trial. It wasn't a criminal trial. It was just a single judge sitting there hearing evidence. As Jeremy indicated, a lot of the evidence she took in didn't really come in her courtroom. It came at those House hearings, which she sort of deferred to. There were a few witnesses, Capitol Police officers and others who came up, and a lot of the evidence is on the record on C-SPAN. You can go and find Trump's speech on the ellipse from January 6, 2021. So there was some fact-finding here, but it still doesn't resolve the question of what if another state did this a different way. This is usually the kind of trial you might have on a question of whether a candidate is a resident of a place they need to be a resident of in order to run for office. So it's not the kind of thing you would convene a jury for typically to resolve. So that's one of the questions the justices are squabbling with or trying to resolve in this particular situation is, you know, should they defer to what Colorado does? Should they defer to what Maine does? There's a bunch of states that don't want to address this question whatsoever. Is there some role for the federal courts here, or is this something that each state can just go ahead and do on a state-by-state basis?
Yeah, let me add, there's a strong historical argument that this should be decided by the states. In other words, the idea that different states reach different conclusions, different states vote for different candidates, and we don't worry about that. Different states have different voting rules. We don't worry about that. So the concern expressed by some members of the court that confusion would reign seems to me overstated, and they easily could, had they chosen to, taken a different tack. But it looks as though, from listening to the argument, as though President Trump will prevail and he will be on the ballot.
I mean, I'll just note that in 1860, when Abraham Lincoln ran for president, he did not appear on the ballot in most southern states, and we did not decide that his presidency was invalid because of it.
Fair enough.
So I'm just sort of trying to understand where we are, because, okay, the 14th Amendment imposes one qualification on being president of the United States. You cannot have tried to overthrow the government, and we could say that's one. But it is not the only qualification the Constitution imposes. It also says that you have to be a native-born American over the age of 35. If a 34-year-old runs for president, who has the power to say that she is not allowed on the ballot?
Well, that's one of the issues that came up at the argument. And I think that the voters in Colorado would say that the Secretary of State in every state, under state law, should have the power to make that decision. But some other people now might suggest that it ought to have to be Congress to decide that. But again, each one of the various qualifications, you mentioned age, which is another one, being a natural-born citizen is another one, all those things. Do we have to have the same mechanism for deciding for each one? Or could we have a different decision mechanism depending on how open and shut it is? I think one of the things that the court felt, or at least some members of the court, was that the question of what age you are is open and shut. Now, that might not be true. We could have conflicting birth certificates, but in general, it's pretty clear. Whereas the question of whether you did or did not engage in insurrection is much more, according to some members of the court, open-ended, needing further consideration. I think that, I don't know how you felt about that.
No, I agree with that. I also think we probably should hesitate to look at this in a completely on-the-level kind of way, by which I mean, it may be that it isn't strictly legalities that are here on the table with the Supreme Court, but other concerns. You might call them political concerns. You might call them concerns about the court's legitimacy if they were to take a candidate off the ballot for whom tens of millions of people apparently want to vote for, if you believe the opinion polls. And there are people who think that what's going on here is sort of what some have termed a grand bargain with the Supreme Court, where they're likely to rule that Trump can remain on the ballot, but they're also facing a case that's coming to them probably today that has to do with whether his criminal trial on charges of trying to subvert the 2020 election can go forward. And one possible outcome here is you might see a broad consensus on the Supreme Court to let Trump remain on the ballot, but in some fashion also let his trial go forward, and that would be seen as a way for the court to avoid appearing to have put their finger heavily on the scale in one direction or another on what is usually a political choice for Americans.
So the immunity trial, I mean, has a particular set of claims, and I don't want to let them go because Trump's attorneys made a kind of remarkable claim of the level of presidential immunity they were claiming to the president, right? At the level of assassinating a political opponent, if we could hear that for a second.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to seal Team 6?
He would have to be and would speedily be, impeached and convicted before the criminal prosecution.
What if he weren't? There would be no criminal prosecution, no criminal liability for that? Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first.
So, I mean, Donald Trump's answer, his attorney's answer, which he tried to dance around with great desperation, but it's pretty clear his answer was no, right? He could not be convicted for that. Can we imagine a Supreme Court saying, actually, presidential immunity extends that far under any circumstances?
I could imagine maybe a couple of justices taking that position, and we do have some justices that are very strong believers in executive power and the needs to have a very agile and robust presidency. But candidly, can I imagine them taking it quite as far as that? No, I can't. And even in past occasions when they've had to address this sort of issue, even involving Trump and his other interactions with the criminal justice system before these current charges, they've pulled back from the brink a little bit and ended up with kind of a compromise answer that said, well, some of the things that a prosecutor is interested in doing would be okay, and we're not going to accept your absolutist arguments on this.
We shouldn't even have bothered to revolt from the King of England if we were going to accept a position like that. I mean, what was the point? That position is ludicrous under American law.
So, just to push on the, not that immunity, but then if we're all structured in this sort of elaborate question about the presidency and how far its immunities thing, whether you're allowed to run, whether or not, you engage in insurrection. I just note the only time I ever met Justice Scalia, many years ago, I'll never forget what he said to me, which is, most of the time my job is very easy. He said, most of the time my job is very easy because I believe in the plain meaning of the text. And most of the time the plain meaning of the text tells me what the Constitution says, and sometimes it's not obvious, but most of the time it is. We can disagree with that assessment or not, but that was his statement multiple times in that one conversation. So, all right, I think there are places where the Constitution is somewhat ambiguous, but it strikes me that this is not one of them, right? That the 14th Amendment, the wording is very clear, and the meaning, if you do actually care about what the writers of it meant, they did it in the wake of the Civil War, their meaning was very clear. So it seems to me particularly ironic that the judges who are most committed to interpretations of the plain meaning of the text seem to be the most enthusiastic about evading them in this case.
Well, there certainly is an irony there, and I would not even begin to dispute it. I do think that they have some textual arguments. We've been over them a little bit. For example, as I read before, the list of officers who are in the text includes senator, representative, elector, but not president. And Justice Jackson, in her questioning and during the oral argument, seized on that as a textual hook. But I guess my bottom line answer to that is when Justice Scalia told you that, he wasn't telling you the truth. It really is not the case that it's easy to interpret the text. I think he took some extreme liberties with the text when he ruled that the Second Amendment protected an individual right to own guns. I think he did that frequently, and he liked the text sometimes and didn't like it other times. And I really think that for your listeners, trying to get them to focus on what exactly does one word mean versus another abstracts from what you raised at the beginning, which is the most important question, was what are the framers trying to do? And what they were trying to do was stop insurrectionists, particularly those who were in the Civil War, from holding office. And that aim and spirit seems to apply directly here. And I think it's unfortunate the court's going to let President Trump off the hook. But I agree 100% with Josh that what I think is likely to happen is that Trump will be allowed to be on the ballot, but they will not accept his absurd immunity claims. They might not even take the case because his claims are so weak. And it will allow the court to present itself as one time I'm with Trump, one time we're against Trump, and allow the country to have some feeling as though the court is neutral in doing things on the merits, which ultimately, we have so many people in both parties who have been warning us for years that we have an insurrectionist, a liar, and someone who does not believe in basic American constitutional principles seeking to hold the highest office in the land. And somebody somewhere has to step up and stop him, but this ballot question is not going to be where.
Jeremy, Josh, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steward Healthcare says it secured enough interim funding to keep its Massachusetts hospitals open for the time being. But the company's financial crisis has sparked concern for the state's healthcare infrastructure. And now, state lawmakers and officials are considering ways to intervene in Steward's case and prevent future crises. GBH News State House reporter Katie Lennon joins me now with more. Katie, how likely is it that the state government's going to intervene?
Well, we've already seen some level of state government response a couple weeks ago when the Department of Public Health announced it had started daily monitoring visits at 4 Steward hospitals, including St. Elizabeth's right here in Brighton. Whether or not that translates into any other action is an open question at this point. We have seen top house lawmakers really strongly push back against the idea of a financial bailout for Steward. They don't want to put, kind of throw money at the problem, which is a financial problem in some ways. There's definitely, it's a financial problem, but there could be policy fixes there that they're interested in looking at, whether that's giving more teeth to regulators like the Health Policy Commission, whether that's taking a look at the hospital oversight process and if things need to be changed, or finding some way to respond to whatever Steward ultimately ends up doing moving forward.
So, what kind of policies are being proposed right now?
Yeah, there's been a few different things because this really isn't something that lawmakers started talking about with Steward. They have been, there's been 3 acute care hospitals that have closed in Massachusetts in the past 10 years, and there have been others that have shut down certain services. So one thing that really sparked a lot of this conversation was last fall when Leominster Hospital closed its maternity ward. That is something that got lawmakers looking then at the issues around discontinuing services. Obviously, it's a bigger deal if a whole hospital closes because it's all the services, right? But there have been bills put forward that would allow the state to temporarily take over a receivership situation if a hospital wants to shut down an essential service. There's bills that would make the process longer, basically, to give communities, employees, patients more notice. There's a bill that the Leominster State Rep, Natalie Higgins, put forward that would basically block for 3 years. If a hospital wants to shut down a service that's been deemed essential, they wouldn't be able to do it for 3 more years. They'd have to come back and try again. So those are all different ideas that talk to pieces of service closures or hospital closures that might become a basis for some sort of broader solution.
Do any of those bills look like they have any prospect of passing?
It's hard to say at this point. They're still being reviewed by committee. Some of them have gotten deadline extensions through the end of the year, which could be a kicking the can down a road. It could be giving the committee that has the bill more time to kind of mix a few things together and come up with a proposal of its own that takes on various elements.
So, Steward is one example of a private equity ownership of a healthcare, sort of basic healthcare structures in the United States, in Massachusetts, but it's not the only one. And there's lots of research demonstrating that when private equity firms come into the healthcare space, they have lots of effects, right? So nursing homes that are private equity owned tend to use drugs more and have fewer staff. Hospitals tend to cut back on staff and load their. Is there any push within the legislature to kind of say, hey, is this the sort of asset that we want private equity funds to be trying to maximize short-term profit off of?
There have been some questions about looking at the private equity element of it all. I don't know necessarily what that might look at yet, but it's something that we've seen top officials raise as one possible direction. And really the whole kind of hospital ecosystem, the finances of it all, the struggles of community hospitals versus, the large academic medical centers. That's been something that's really vexed policymakers for years on Beacon Hill. One thing that I'm going to be watching for is Governor Healy is due to file an economic development bill at some point in the near future. That's based on a plan she filed in December, which, one of the things laid out in that plan was we as Massachusetts can play an outsized role because of our healthcare ecosystem in helping find more sustainable financial models for hospitals. So I'm very curious to see if she's going to put forward anything there, which of course lawmakers would have the opportunity to put their own imprint on.
But has she announced anything specific yet?
Not yet. We're watching for that in the future.
So I think there's been some criticism of the Steward Hospital leadership and its CEO in particular. Could you sort of describe what that is and what effects that's having on the political dynamics?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a couple of very high-profile Boston Globe columns recently singling out the yacht and another boat owned by the head of Steward. And interestingly enough, the State House Speaker, Ron Mariano, is a Democrat from Quincy, and he has been talking about his relationship with Steward and its leadership dating back to when they closed Quincy Hospital. That's one of the moments that really sparked an interest in him in preserving community hospitals. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship and that dynamic might affect any policy that comes out.
And so given this relationship and this history, how is the Steward leadership, what is their argument for trying to forestall what I guess is a very unfriendly intervention on the part of the state government?
Yeah, what they've been pointing to that I've seen in other media reports in various places is that, you know, this is not a Steward problem. They say it's a hospital ecosystem problem, that, you know, they have staffing shortages because in part these bigger teaching hospitals, academic medical centers can pay more. They, you know, and that affects patient care quality when you have a staffing shortage, that it's really this kind of cycle that they've been hoping to see maybe lawmakers step in. They've asked in the past for more funding, for more financial help. So they might be hoping to see something that comes in that direction rather than a punitive or a heavy policy focus.
So they're hoping for a bailout, but it sounds like there's not a lot of interest in to give them one on the Massachusetts State Hill.
Right. I don't know, and I should say I don't know specifically that they're hoping for a bailout, but they definitely had asked lawmakers in the past to maybe consider creating or a community hospital reinvestment fund. So I think they see it as a financial problem.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Finally tonight, get your shovels ready. Maybe. A nor'easter is rumored to hit Massachusetts early tomorrow morning, and it's expected to bring several inches of snow. School is already canceled for tomorrow in Boston and several other communities across the state. But meteorologist Dave Epstein seems to disagree. He joins me with what's in store. Dave, how much fun are we going to have tomorrow?
Yeah, you know, this has been just a nail biter of a forecast here, Gautam, over the past several hours. This morning, the overnight data from the European model started to indicate a southern shift of what we were looking at. So many of the models were forecasting anywhere from 6 to 12 up to 14 inches of snow. But then this came out. And what this says is that the heaviest snow is going to stay out over the ocean, over the fish, and we're just going to see a very light to perhaps moderate snowfall. Over the past several hours, as we went through the afternoon and into the early evening, it looks like the other models are starting to say, hey, you know what, Euro? I think you're right. And so what we're forecasting now is according to a couple of inches of snow north of the Mass Pike, and maybe 2 to 5 as you get into the Boston area, and 3 to 6 a little further south. If the shift continues tonight, then the storm would even be less impactful. I also think it's going to move in here during the second half of the morning commute tomorrow. So the first half of the morning commute, which I originally thought would be snowy, now you'll be fine. So if you need to go to work tomorrow, there won't be any problems. Early on, I think the snow moves in mid-morning to late morning. It's kind of a burst of snow as the storm gets close, and then it's out of here for the evening. This is what I'm thinking at the present time. Again, if we have a little more of a southern push, then those bands will shift south. If the storm were to shift a little north, in actuality tomorrow, we'll get a little bit heavier snow, but for now, it just does not look to me like a major nor'easter as it did literally just a day ago.
All right, Dave, so as our codfish friends prepare their skis for what I'm sure will be an epic season for them, give us a little bit of a sense as to how these models differ and why we're getting this conflicting information.
Yeah, it's a great question. The internal physics of the models are slightly different. So the atmosphere itself, what goes into the models, is basically the same, but how the models evaluate the atmosphere is slightly different. The equation, for example, thermodynamics is the equation for thermodynamics. It doesn't matter whether it's the GFS or the Euro model, but how they handle things, what they do with it, some of the assumptions the models make are a little bit different. And it is really disappointing that the American model is continuously often behind the European model. The European model is known as a better model. And I get asked the questions, well, then why don't you just accept that? it's because it's not always right. It's certainly better, but sometimes the GFS and the NAM, the American friends, do outperform the Euros. So you can't just forecast based on one model. You have to kind of look at the whole suite. But when you see everybody starting to say, hey, I think the Euro is right, then you got to go along with it. And it's why I lowered the snowfall maps this afternoon.
So given that, we've already seen closures across the state preemptively that may not have been necessary. Would you sort of suggest that we maybe wait next time before we pull the trigger on those sorts of decisions?
Yeah, I always think it's a good idea. I get, I forecast for a superintendent or two around here. And, I had this conversation this evening with one of them, or this afternoon with one of them. And it's like, what happens is that their colleagues start to call school, and that starts impacting teachers who now need to stay home at that particular district, so that the next district may have to call because the teachers can't get in, because it's like a domino effect. So yeah, it's always a good idea to wait. And it was a little bit of a lack of sureness this morning. I was putting out some information saying, I don't like what I'm seeing with the European, but I think that a lot of people just kind of went with, hey, we need to call school. Now, should be snowing tomorrow afternoon when the buses will be coming home. Roads probably will be difficult and slow to travel. So those schools that called school, as long as the maps hold, there will be snow in the afternoon. But again, if the storm trends further south tonight, it could be even less.
So, Dave, we haven't had real snow in a long time. What's going on?
Yeah, 717 days since the last 4-inch or greater snowfall took place on February 25th back in 2022. So it's been almost 2 years. We're kind of, in some respects, reverting to the mean. We actually had our snowiest decade on record up through a few years ago. So roughly 2004-5 up through 2014-15. And then things began to shut down after that big winter. So we're kind of reverting to the mean, which is in the mid to upper 40s in terms of snowfall, after having an excessively snowy decade around the area. Now, whether or not this is a new pattern that we're going to see that's going to last longer than just getting us back to the mean, are we going to now reestablish things with a lower threshold for snow, remains to be seen. We don't know. But this is yes, climate change is in the background, but the past few years of lower snow, I think folks fail sometimes to remember we had some big winters not that long ago.
So, Dave, when will we know for sure?
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
I think tomorrow morning when you get up, the forecast will be pretty solid, and we're going to get new information in this evening. It starts coming in at about 9 o'clock. That will run up until about 1 in the morning. When forecasters get up in the morning, we'll be looking at it. But I feel pretty confident that this isn't going to trend back to getting a foot of snow. I think the question now is, how little is the storm? How impactful is it on the lower end, not the upper end?
So for those of our watchers who are not used to this type of uncertainty in the weather, welcome to Boston. I'm glad you've moved in. And Dave, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
That's it for tonight. I'm Gautam Mukunda. Thanks for watching, and good night.
Next time